Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you to everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, alongside with DisabWolf here. We got a very special episode of VSW tonight. We have the ace, Mike Montero, calling in tonight for an interview with us. We got some questions for him. He's reigning New England champion right now in NCW. He's also reigning world champion in Proving Grounds, and he's just killing the business right now, so we can't wait for him to call in.
And if you want to catch up on your latest NCW action, watch Versace's previews and recaps of past month of Behind Closed Doors and NCW on every Thursday at 7 p.m. sharp. And look out for our recap and watch the pay-per-view for the NCW virtual reunion. I wasn't there, where Mike Montero regained the New England Championship after over a year against Insane Dick Lane.
And here we go. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, my man?
How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great.
What's up, Mike?
Not much, just hanging out. Just waiting to be on the show, I'm excited.
Hell
Great,
yeah.
We're excited to have you. I'm just going to go over a few things, I remember the first time I saw you, it was at NCW Face-Off. It's a very special date. It was September 28th, 18th. It was the day you beat Tomahawk for the New England title. And you had a tremendous reign with that title since that date. And I think that was the first time I saw you wrestle live. Since then, you've done an insane amount of, wrestling, obviously, across multiple promotions. Proving Ground champion and everything. But I just want to say, since then, I've been a diehard fan of yours. I've been watching you in every promotion.
Well, man, I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. Seriously, because guys like you who actually pay attention to everyone's product, you're the reason why we keep going and why we keep doing what we do.
You debuted when? 2013 or so?
I first started, so it's kind of weird. I had my very first match in front of a live audience when I was 16. That was in 2007. I started to get my feet wet with in-ring experience for a few years at the RWA before the RWA started doing their own live shows, because RWA's become way bigger now. But before, when they were more close-knit, that's where I gained my experience. And by 2011, I was working independent shows consistently. So I've been in the game for basically 10 years.
Very nice, very nice.
Awesome.
And when you started, you were in the tag division, right?
Yes. I've actually had multiple partners.
But the original was what, you and Jason Devine and the Influence?
Yes, that's where I found the most success.
Yeah, and even from there, it's grown into the success, I think, of what, Dirt City Murder Crew has turned into today.
Absolutely. The influence that it's evolved, because I went and did my own thing, and while I was doing my own thing, Jason Devine, he absolutely loves tag team wrestling, so he continued on tag teaming with Ricky Medeiros, and we've all known each other since the start. We all started together, so coming together was easy because we all have that cohesiveness and we all think on that same level.
Yeah, when that, you have that, you guys are close and you have that, it really works together well in the ring. You can see that, when you guys do wrestle, when you guys come out, everything is fluid, everything is very smooth. Like I said, regardless of the promotion, whether it's Proving Ground, whether it's NCW, RWA, wherever you guys wrestle. You got a big match coming up on Proving Ground, speaking of Proving Ground, against AJP.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And what are you feeling about that? It's been over a year since you've had to really defend that title, right?
Yeah, I've defended it one other time against AJ Phoenix's buddy, Jamie Tucker. That was kind of to tune me up to get back into this thing. But as far as AJ Phoenix goes, I already proved to him over a year and a half ago that I'm better than he is, and I already beat him. Now, if it was up to me, we wouldn't be having this match. But I can't take anything away from him because he did defeat 3 guys in one night to get to this dance. So
Pretty
we're going to do this dance. It is incredible, and we're going to do this dance one more time, but he's going to find out, just like everyone else has found out, that he's just not as incredible as the Ace.
No, there really isn't anybody out there. You know, when I talk to people about you, because I let me tell you, I bring independent wrestling into the world a lot. I'm always pushing the product, and I'm always pushing the people's names. And, you know, I'm always talking about, you know, you and, like, you know, what you guys do with Detox. And I always, to compare you to someone that people know, I always push you as Adam Cole. And
Baby.
Well, that's a huge compliment. I appreciate that. Thank you.
The way I see you, and then like I see Ricky and, you know, Jason combined as, you know, it reminds me of that, you know, undisputed era that could someday be.
Right, I could totally see that.
You know, you have such a ring presence when you come down. You know, you're very determined. We saw that at the last NCW event. You know, you were determined to take your title back. You were wronged at the you know, at that
First
that show
episode,
at
yeah.
WrestleFest 15, you know, it was an unfair match. You had, you know, you were restricted.
I was in a straight jacket. I wasn't even in gear. I was wearing clothes. I mean, granted, if I wasn't straight jacketed, I still would have been able to retain the championship against Dick Lane. I don't have a question about that in my mind. But the fact is, how could a man possibly defend himself with his arms tied to himself?
No, it wasn't a fair fight at all, and you know, it was a bogus call to even allow such a thing to happen. You know, if he wanted to cash in the Ox Baker Cup, that's fine. At least, you know, let you get prepared. Say, hey, here we go. You know, he really just took advantage of the whole situation.
And
Everyone should always be in ring gear before they wrestle.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Dick Lane had his moment. The crowd went insane. Everybody had a good time. He was happy about it. He had a long run where he didn't have to defend the championship for over a year. That was nice for him.
He's in St. Dick Lane for a reason.
Right, but all good fairy tales, they do come to an end. His fairy tale is over because I'm the champion again, and all is right in the world.
They do. He got lucky, but he got lucky with that, you know, having Kellen Thomas there, you know, defend for him. He got a little lucky there. It would have happened that night. I think you would have captured it.
Yeah, I agree. Kellen Thomas has always thrown a monkey wrench into my plans. He's always standing in my way because I know how badly he wants to have that distinction of being one of only 2 men to hold every championship in NCW. But I've said it to him, and I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry that's something that you need. That's something that I'm standing in the way of because as long as I'm the New England champion, he's never going to get his hands on it.
No, and you brought in great prestige to that title. Like I said, you know, you held it from, you know, September 28, 18, all the way to that November 15, 2019 date. That's a long title reign.
413 days to be exact.
And it wasn't, you know, without title defenses either. I
took on all challengers.
You know, that's you know, you proved your worth, I think, there. And, you know, I think eventually you're going to be, you know, Mike Two Belts.
AC2
I'm not satisfied. I'm never satisfied where I'm at. I constantly want to keep going. I constantly want to move up. And yeah, absolutely. I am the New England champion right now, but I'm not going to settle for being just the New England champion. Last year, on the way to WrestleFest, I started carving out a path to make it to WrestleFest and have the main event be champion versus champion. And who's to say that that's not my same plan going into this season of NCW, is making sure that the Dirt City Murder Crew, by hook or by crook, leaves with all of the gold.
Now, I mean, they had a little bit of an issue there with Waves and Curls, you know, with Divine being injured. It didn't help the situation. In my opinion, I think they should have went with P-Deck. They went with Lust, and they lost the titles. You think they're going to, you know, will they be getting another title shot back with those?
I don't see why they wouldn't be getting a title shot considering the real tag team champions weren't defeated. It goes back to this whole straitjacket situation thing. Since when, and the thing with Kellen, since when you guys who don't hold championships get to defend championships?
I mean, yeah, exactly. If Lust was meant to be champion, well, he would have had the title around his waist.
Then wouldn't it be Middlesex Express against Waves and Curls or something like that, right? No, instead, why wasn't I able to substitute for my partner? Why did I have to watch one of my my buddies, lose their championships having to team with somebody that's not in the Dirt City Murder Crew.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry I just don't think
like
was there.
Smells like a conspiracy to me.
Yeah, definitely. The chemistry just was kind of thrown into the spot. Not a lot of time to work together. And, I mean, honestly, what is it in it for Lust? He has nothing to gain by winning.
No, you're right. Exactly. It's another one of those substitute champion situations.
I don't know if Dick Lane and Kellen had something behind closed doors about, if Kellen was the winner or not. But, again, he didn't have nothing to lose either by beating you. I think he just wanted to see if he could.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. All I know is once Jason Devine is healed and the Dirt City Murder Crew is at full strength, we will be coming back for those tag team championships, because the fact is, Detox is the longest reigning tag team champions in the history, the 24-year history of NCW. Nobody's held the titles longer than they have.
And Waves and Curls made it look so easy on the pay-per-view.
Well, that's because they weren't facing the real Detox now, were they?
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, let me ask you, 2020, crazy year. I went to the season opener. The next day, the world shut down. What did you do? How did you, manage with that? All the shows are getting canceled. All your plans for the next 6 months gone. How'd you handle?
At first, I was really bitter and pissed off, because I've been wrestling for almost half my life. And I came off of the hottest year I've ever had in 2019, holding 5 singles championships in the year, 4 at the same time, all simultaneously. And I really thought that 2020, my last year in my 20s, was going to be that year that I was finally going to break out and become more than just a local talent. And I was going to be somebody that everyone in this country, nationwide, somebody that everyone knows. And the world completely shut down. So that made me angry. But then what it made me do is it made me focus on all my negatives in my game. And it really made me think, is I'm not gonna go out of my way and toot my own horn and say I'm the greatest. But I no longer have this, what's the word I'm looking for here? I no longer feel afraid of the talent that I possess. I'm no longer afraid to admit that I am one of the best in this game, especially in this area. But the one thing that's hindered me is size, the aesthetics, the look. And, sometimes you sat in the crowd and you had to watch the match to see me do what I do and to understand what I can do in that ring. Sometimes I'm not given that chance at first glance. Sometimes a person looks at me like, oh, this small guy, forget it.
No, and that's what I say to people all the time. The difference between the people I see at NCW and these other events and the people I watch on TV is just, the opportunity that they got and who watched them.
Right. So that's what I've done this entire year is I didn't get many chances to get in the ring, but every chance I got a chance to get in the ring for ring time, I was in there working on stuff, coming up with new moves, coming up with new ways to get into my stuff, change my arsenal, and I worked on my body this year, and I got myself into the best shape I've honestly ever been in.
Yeah, I've seen some photos. You definitely, you made some nice gains there. And, like you said, before, the size thing, when I first started watching wrestling, geez, there was no such thing as a welterweight division. There was no middleweights. You were either, a big 300, 400, 500-pound dude, or you were you were getting squashed that night. You weren't winning.
You're absolutely right.
Wrestling has evolved.
Small guys.
Wrestling has evolved now. It's more athletic. They're kind of pushing, the more athletic aspect, the more
and they're less
guys
drug-heavy users now compared to back then, in the golden era.
But, it is definitely, I would say probably, I could see a challenge there with, not being, one of the tallest, most, biggest guys, trying to make an impact without, it's a hard thing to do. But, you do it with your movesets, you run great promos. And like I said, being excellent on the mic and being able to, put on good matches for a solid amount of time, I think, it proves to a lot of people what you can do. And again, it's just a matter of the right people seeing it.
You're right. I think that's one of the big things in independent wrestling is being able to walk the walk and talk the talk. And there's not a lot of guys in this area and in this game who can do both. And I can comfortably say that if you put me on that microphone, I can eat anyone alive. And if you put me in the ring with them, I can do just the same.
Definitely, definitely. I can see that happening. Like I said, you are definitely one of New England's greats. DisabWolf, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. In the matter of fact, Ace, so one of my friends, Michael Panchu, who helps us out with VSW, I myself haven't watched this much indie wrestling in my life just the past few years. I've gotten involved since like Young Bucks and Omega 4 years ago, wrestling, doing their thing.
Right.
They obviously launch AEW. But my question is, how can a person who just watches WWE can get into indie wrestling?
I think the best way to get into independent wrestling is to go and watch an independent wrestling show.
Absolutely.
Find one that's local in your area. Find one that's close to you. Just go to one, because there's no atmosphere and there's no experience like it. Anybody I've ever known who isn't familiar with what pro wrestling is, and they know that I'm a pro wrestler, asks me why do you do that, and what is it about it? It's like, I can't explain it to you. You have to go in there and experience the energy for yourself, the atmosphere, the room, that smog that's in that, like, in the ceiling, the way you can hear every shot as somebody's getting hit in the face, the noise from the ring, like the snap of the ropes, everything. It's a totally different atmosphere. Like, you can go to a WWE show and you can be in a big venue, or an AEW show and be in a big venue, but you don't have the same acoustics and you don't hear the same things. You don't feel the same vibes that you do when you're that close up at an independent wrestling show. There's nothing else like it.
It is. I agree, because we were starting to go last year. I was starting to go to more NCW shows. I went to Beyond, and we were about to go Limitless. Then, obviously, the world shut down. But since you're in your late 20s, like myself, doesn't it suck when you tell people about wrestling and they're like, oh, I haven't watched since it was Stone Cold and The Rock? I'm like, no crap, right?
Yeah, it's a little frustrating sometimes when people ask me, like, oh, who's your favorite wrestler? And it's like, I can't even tell you, because you probably don't know who it is, you know?
But speaking of favorite wrestlers, let me ask you this now. You said you started wrestling in your early teens, throwing a match. Obviously you must have started off as a fan. What kind of inspired you? What, got you into wrestling?
So growing up, my family they were always wrestling fans, and wrestling was always on. I was always watching wrestling. I can't remember not loving wrestling, but I can tell you when I decided I wanted to be a pro wrestler, and that was 2001. It was WrestleMania 17, and it's also the inspiration. It's also the inspiration for why I started my wrestling career as a tag team wrestlers. At that time, now everybody talks about the golden age of tag team wrestling, and really in WWF, it was in the 80s.
Yes.
But in the 2000s and in 2001, WrestleMania 17, what the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian
that triple
did for
threat
tag team
TLC.
wrestling, what they did for tag team wrestling that night, they changed the game. They made a kid like me who was 10 years old sitting. I sat there and I didn't, for the first time, in my life, I didn't sit there and think, boy, I could be imagine if I was the WWF champion someday. Those guys made me want to be the tag team champions.
There you go.
What they did was just so groundbreaking and so different, and what they were willing to do to their bodies to make tag team wrestling mean something, that is the reason why I wrestle today.
I mean, and obviously with those 6 people you mentioned, there's a lot of passion for the sport within themselves. I mean, like you said, what they put their bodies through, what they put their mind through, what they've done for this game has been really tremendous. If you think about all of their careers through, the early days of ECW and backyards all the way to now in the Hall of Fame and so forth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Every single one of them have something significant to contribute individually and as a tag team.
See, now, me specifically, I'm a very big tag team wrestling fan. I started in the 80s watching, the Rockers, Demolition, all of them.
Right.
So I'm loving to see, now that I can see in the local scene, you're starting to get these tag team division back up there.
Oh, yeah.
I
love it, too.
You got Detox out there, you got Competition, you got, Prestige running around, you got MSP. You got a really nice, diverse crowd of tag teams, which wasn't maybe there 5 years ago.
Yeah, oh no, you're absolutely right. Tag team wrestling was kind of forgot about, especially in this area, so it is nice to see a lot of teams starting to break out and show prominence.
Because, you can honestly get a different match out of somebody working in a tag compared to a singles match. They have a different aura about them, everything.
A tag team match has so many different elements to it. The creativity level, and because you have two extra bodies out there, it makes for a much more interesting match and combination.
So, as this year now, as we, obviously things are starting to open up. I mean, fans are starting to be allowed at certain shows en masse. More opportunities. What are your plans going forward? Are you looking to venture out into new promotions? Are you looking to just keep redominating New England?
I am looking out to venture out to other promotions. I want to go everywhere that I can have a killer match every single chance that I get, because at this point, I'm no longer satisfied with just having matches. I want my matches to be significant. I want to tell meaningful stories, and wherever I can do that, that's where I want to be.
That's pretty inspiring right there. Like I said, a lot of people are just, I feel, they, not a lot, but there's a bunch that are just, and they're okay with just having matches, mediocre matches. They live for the mediocrity. They're fine with it. It's the way they live. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's great to see people inspire for more.
Right. No, and that's exactly how I feel. I've always been enamored with the storytelling, the storyline of the power struggle between two guys. Like, who's the better man? It can come down to that, but it can break down to so much more. So that's really what I care about. Especially like if you think about it, like going back to Proving Ground and this deal with AJ Phoenix, this feud between us has been boiling up for nearly 2 years now.
It's long-term storytelling at its finest, really.
Exactly.
Speaking of inspiring Versace that you said a minute or so ago, and Ace, I want you to hear this too. One of the things, I'm going to start a Boston Sports under the VSW banner, because my whole life I'm a huge wrestling and I'm a huge Boston Sports. That's 75% of my personality, okay? And so,
that's awesome.
And so part of my goal is when I start the sportscast is, since Versace and I will do wrestling too, is to get people that are maybe diehard Bruins fans or Patriots fans to get back into wrestling, and I want the exposure for people. New England is very underrated when it comes to wrestling talent. Everyone you see on Wednesday nights, whether it's in Full Sail in Florida or the All Elite area in Jacksonville, has come from a New England promotion.
You're right. They've all some way, shape, or form have found their way out to this area and have carved out names for themselves.
Absolutely. And part of my question is, what can I do to talk to people inside or outside my podcast to really hype the Proving Ground or NCW areas of wrestling for you guys?
Well, what could you do to talk to those guys?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just reach out to them, honestly. I mean, like the same way we're having this conversation here, it's exposure for anybody to be able to get a chance to come out and tell their story and speak,
Absolutely.
And the more exposure, the more eyes on the product, the more eyes on the talent, the more eyes, and that's what I think that's what the independent scene needs, is just more eyes.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. No, nobody's gonna be afraid to want to tell their story,
And that's why I want to do Boston Sports too, is so I can get everyone's passionate about that. I want more exposure going to that to go to wrestling too,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But yeah, and to go back to what you're saying on the storytelling side, I've seen, I find like, in a lot of promotions, sometimes the art of storytelling or the storylines get lost because your shows are spaced months apart, monthly hopefully, but sometimes, every 3 months. So to stick with storylines, usually it's some way based online or whatnot. But now it's like, during, I would call the pandemic era of wrestling, you've got a lot of weekly shows emerging, like NCW Behind Closed Doors.
Limitless the Road.
Exactly. You got a perfect place to be able to now develop storylines from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. Do you find this benefiting the indie scene?
I do, actually, because I think it's giving, because every episode of whatever company you're watching, every company is producing things episodic. It's giving you something to look forward to. Like with The Road, for Limitless, you have to watch that every single week to be able to pay attention to what's going on. And Chaotic basically does the same thing. And I think it is helping with long-term storytelling because now you're going from episode to episode. And whereas before, a lot of these companies, you were going to their shows live and you're seeing a lot of that stuff. And then maybe months later, the stuff that you saw live is getting aired, but now you have to wait for that stuff to come out. So it's a little bit different. And also, I think as far as long-term storytelling and sometimes stories taking a little longer to pan out, like with the pandemic and stuff like that, I feel like if your story is compelling enough, people aren't going to forget. Like, for example, it's like I said, it's been a year and a half, but I don't think people have forgotten the animosity between myself and AJ Phoenix, just as an example. So, like, I feel like if your storytelling is compelling and people sink their teeth into it, they're not going to forget.
No,
you know what I mean?
Definitely not. I mean, we're very excited for that match. As a matter of fact, it's no secret. As soon as I saw that match be listed as the main event, I, contacted your boss and was like, I'd like to sponsor that one, please.
Very much appreciated.
But, I think it's going to be something, that's going to be, like you said, kind of a little bit of closure. And, a lot of the diehard fans do remember how heated that feud was.
Right.
And, when you're a diehard fan and that stuff can get embedded in your head. And I don't think a lot of people did forget. Same thing with, your Dick Lane feud. Not a lot of people remembered what happened at WrestleFest 15 when you were straight-jacket lost it. I mean, even after a year, they still remembered that incident.
Right.
So, I mean, like you said, the compelling stories is really what drives it in between the time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And in matter of fact, how do you feel your chemistry was with Dick Lane through the past year and a half when it comes to wrestling each other? Do you feel satisfied with your matches with him? I thought they were really great.
I do actually. I don't think I have. It's weird. I don't think I've ever had a bad match with Dick Lane. I've gotten to wrestle him one-on-one I want to say 3 or 4 times, and each time I think the match gets bigger, it gets better, it becomes more entertaining. So, yeah, no, I can't take anything away from Dick Lane. He's constantly improving. He's constantly getting better.
Definitely one of my favorites on my radar, too, and, definitely entertaining at that.
Especially with Steven the Turtle as his manager.
Yeah, they do a great job.
That adds a whole nother layer to Dick Lane's character in NCW.
Yeah, they really do. It's kind of fun how he kind of plays different roles, whether, it's Dick Busters over here, Turtles in Time over there. And
Right.
that's the beauty part about the independent scene. If you go to show, you can see people in the different light.
Right, and you can see the different layers that they add to their characters, something that they don't necessarily show you here. You get to see them do something different there, which gives you a reason to want to go there to follow these people, because not everybody wants to watch you go do the same thing everywhere.
Exactly. You get that in the mainstream wrestler. They're a one-style, one-pony trick.
Right.
In the indie scene, you got many layers to that. Like you said, you could go and see people in totally different gimmicks across 3 different promotions and not even realize it until, 6 months in.
Yeah, right.
Let me just ask you this one. If you were to think of off your head, your most memorable match you have had in your career, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. My most memorable match. I would say wrestling the Maximos back in 2011.
Wow.
Yeah, I tagged with actually Jason Devine's cousin, Zach Alexander, in 2011, and we took on the, so if you're familiar with the SAT, Amazing Red, Joel and Jose Maximo.
Yep.
Yeah, we worked those guys in 2011. I was 20 years old, and that was my first taste of, wrestling an independent wrestler with notoriety and credibility, not just in this area, but, those guys were in TNA. They were in the original ROH, so it was mind-blowing to be able to be in the ring with those guys. I mean, another one that comes to mind is the match I had with Azrael for the Proving Ground title a couple of years ago.
Yep, I think I've actually seen that match. That was an excellent matchup.
I mean, It's hard. It's hard because I've been wrestling for a really long time, and a lot of the guys that have really broken out over the years, I've pretty much been in the ring with all of them. Like, I mean, you think of like all the the only kids I really haven't worked with now is the fresh new talent that's coming out of Chaotic like now. But like all their last class of students and all the students before that, I've pretty much gotten to work with everybody in this area.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could probably look on YouTube and see you versus anybody and probably find it.
It's like
you said, you have been around in a long time, and, you know, you've lasted longer than probably most have, whether they moved on or retired.
Absolutely.
So you've seen the classes come and go.
And our whole point of VSW is to help promote indie wrestling, the stock go up. The problem is you guys all deserve the reputation. Work your asses off, different gimmicks. Feel like it doesn't get noticed because we're not in the late 90s, and even then they overlooked indie wrestling, and it's nothing to overlook. It's a fun time.
You're absolutely right, and I just want to say that I appreciate you guys who actually take the time to put independent wrestling in a light like this, because like I said before, until you get to experience it live for yourself, you never truly will understand exactly why this is so special to us.
No, it's like when you walk into an event, it's like walking into a family reunion where you know everybody, and then the show begins. It's great.
Even if you haven't been that much, you still feel like what Versace
you will always
says.
See a familiar face from the last show, and they'll greet and smile you like they're your first cousin.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is cool. That's like one of the best parts of going to shows.
And, you do get to meet with the talent in between, and you do get to see them after. And it is that, more personable experience than you get at any WWE event. Unless you spend buku dollars, you're not going to get to meet all the guys. But, at an NCW event during the halftime, you can meet, 3 or 4 people. You can get photos. You can buy merch. You can say hi. So, I mean, that also brings a great element to fans, because they don't get that opportunity.
It's true. It's a different experience to be that close up, that hands on with some of your favorite performers.
Most definitely.
And is there anyone you're dying to work with for wrestling, or it can be like a pro WWE or AEW within the next 6 months as the world starts to open up?
I'm not too sure about like anyone WWE, AEW, but I think somebody who's definitely on my radar that I definitely want to get in the ring with is Alec Price.
He's doing amazing.
I think that would be a really good match chemistry-wise between you two.
Our paths have crossed it at shows many times. We've seen each other in the locker room many times, but we've never been in the ring together. But I know the second that somebody books that, everyone else is going to wish that they did first.
Oh, yeah, that will be definitely a fire matchup. I could see that happening. And like I said, he's been doing great. He's come a long way in the last couple years.
Especially since the pandemic has brought the weekly shows back. I feel like guys that you haven't really heard of in the indie scene, like Love Doug, Alec Price, and everyone else.
They're starting to make a name. People are starting to get notarized and noticed.
You're right. It's cool to see It in a way, it's kind of bittersweet because it sucks for the people who wrestling it kind of like fizzled out and faded out for them during this era. But it's also really cool to see the people who flourished and actually made something out of themselves during the pandemic era. And I mean, the two guys you just named, I mean, Love Doug and Alec Price, they virtually really like. But, I mean, I can't say Alec Price wasn't already doing it because he already gained a name for himself in Limitless before the pandemic. But
he did. He definitely worked on himself, though.
But Love Doug really he popped up out of nowhere and he's killing it.
Even Becca, from the NCW season opener till now, she's come such a long way.
There are a lot of people who've really, like, just impressed, It's cool to see all these different fresh faces coming in, especially in NCW.
Oh, like I said, like even you yourself, you took, at first you were a little bitter with the whole shutdown, but then you started to take that negative energy, put it to positive, change the body the way you wanted to make it, get yourself in the mind frame that you wanted to be, turned it into something positive, and you came out a better person.
Right, absolutely, and I couldn't possibly feel better than I do right now. Like I'm feeling like things are starting to finally turn back around and go to the way that I want them to be, I feel like I'm having some of the best matches of my life right now. Like, this is the time.
That is great to hear, and we can't wait to see all the matches that are going to be coming up in the months to come. But we thank you. We're just about out of time here on our show. We thank you, Mike, for having us.
Thank you, Ace.
And
thank you so much for having me, guys. This was a blast. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Definitely, and we can't wait to, watch your Proving Ground match, and you come, hopefully, out victorious with that title still around your waist.
There is nothing I won't do to make sure that I walk out still the champion.
That's what I like to hear. Have a great night, Mike.
Thank you. You too, guys. Take care.
Too. What a great interview that was.
That was a great interview. And now, honestly, he is one of the top talent of New England. You might think he's tuning his own horn. He's not. Anywhere he goes, this guy kills it. Whether it's Rhode Island, Massachusetts, it doesn't matter where. You could YouTube him. Just type in Mike Montero. You're going to see a lot of matches. Watch them. They're excellent. I mean, I can't name a better talent right now. I really can't. There's so much talent. He's just one of the best. In my opinion, he's next to break out soon. He easily could be working for any of the major promotions and kill it and crush it. What do you say to say, Wolf?
I absolutely agree. He's longest reigning NCW New England Champion in history, and he could easily go for not only the NCW title, he could go to Limitless or beyond and make a name of himself in New England or...
whoever, like you said, whoever books him versus Alec Price is going to be gold. Whether we see it at Limitless, whether we see it at Proving Ground, whether we see it at NCW, wherever we see it, it's going to be a special match, I think. We could even see it at Chaotic. That's the thing about New England. Any of these people could call dibs and, put on the killer match. We could even see it at a Beyond show. That could even happen. But anywhere, like you said, anybody that gets this match, it's going to be one hell of a match if it happens. Definitely, both of those guys on my radar.
Absolutely, and you can catch Mike Montero on the promotion's NCW and Proving Ground. Rewatch all his matches. He just came out, regained the title from, like we said earlier, Insane Dick Lane on the virtual reunion. Please go back and watch that.
Exactly. If you didn't get to watch it, it's like $12. Just go and buy it. It's worth it. It's a stacked card from bottom to top. And, it's worth the $12. Just buy it. You own it. You can watch it whenever you want. You'll want to watch it more than once. I promise you that. Check it out. Check out these people every week. Check out all, the people that we promote on our podcast, on our, Twitter pages, at VSW Podcast, at DisabWolf, at Versace Stoner 9. We always talk about the independent scene as well as the major scene. Check these guys out. They are really good. I promise you that. But like we said, we're just about out of time. I thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Versace Stoner out.
DisabWolf out.